Hello, this is Alex, and welcome to the Happypharmd podcast. This is episode 2 of the business series, and with me I have Alex Evans. I need more Alexes in my life. That's why he's here with me. He's also a business owner. Say hey, Alex.
Hey, Alex.
Cool. I honestly didn't do that, but now that I'm a dad, I should be more prepared. This episode, we're going to be talking about business, specifically roadblocks in business and what holds pharmacists back from pursuing businesses or even just simple business ideas. We're going to be talking about the fundamentals for what you really need to get started doing business. We're going to be talking about the roadblocks that hold pharmacists back and how to overcome them. And ideally, at the end of this, what I'm hoping is that you are inspired to pursue something like this. If you have an idea, yes, even if you're busy, even if you don't have any time, but you want to help other people, my hope is that at the end of this, we'll give you some great actionable steps. So Alex, you and I started this conversation about what we would talk about today with a website. Tell me about what's going on with your website for your business.
So I launched my website about 3 months ago, farmcompliance.com. I think that it's definitely been a learning experience so far. It's a whole new set of skills to learn website design, and didn't even hardly know what search engine optimization meant and all these other technical things, but ultimately knew that I wanted to help community pharmacists learn more about how to protect themselves from third-party audits, from pharmacy inspections, and to improve operations in the pharmacy. And I had experience in an independent type pharmacy, is owned by a hospital, but run more like an independent, where I've been responsible for pretty much everything that goes on, licensing and all of the back end things with the insurance companies, and got the chance to learn a lot that I have not been able to learn with chains, just simply because they have an office where they take care of it, and think that a lot of that could help pharmacists.
Yeah. So this is obviously different than what we talked about in our last episode, where we talked mainly about medical writing.
Yeah.
So with this, you have a completely new setup and you have a website hosting all of it. I think the probing question I asked was something like, what's going on with your business? What are you struggling with? What are you going with? And the first thing that you said is website.
Yeah. But you know what? The biggest step to take is that I did was just launching it, just get it started and turn it on. And over time, I feel like I've edited my homepage a million times already, and probably will a million more times as I
Yes.
find ways to make it look better and more approachable, and have new content that I think should go on the homepage and that kind of thing. But that was the same thing as with medical writing. You just get started, and you feel your way around in the dark until you eventually kind of figure something out. So with medical writing, I kind of see more of that whole process, because I have been able to get enough clients to go part-time as a pharmacist. With the website, I'm still in that process of feeling around, feeling in the dark, seeing what works.
Yeah. Feeling in the dark. That is a creepy saying, but also very true for entrepreneurship.
Very, very true.
When we first started talking about this idea of what holds people back or what they're struggling with, at first all the things that came to mind were the things that slowed me down. How do I set up an LLC? How do I build a website? Terms of service. How do I have a document that, protects me? Do I need to hire a lawyer, malpractice? All of these supplementary things that exist in the business world. But ultimately, I find that all of them are ancillary problems that shouldn't hold you back from selling widgets or products. So a little bit of interesting, I don't know, maybe it's interesting history to me. For the Happypharmd, when I first started it, I actually thought the way to help pharmacists is to focus on helping people create businesses, because that's how I found some freedom in my life. I was able to pay off my house 27 years early because of my businesses. And I thought a lot of people are going to want this. They're going to want help. But I discovered that the main feedback I got from people who took my classes or they were coached by me in this process was, even if I create this business, it doesn't change my job situation. Like, I'm still at this job. And people had like just an overwhelming feeling of, this is not my ticket to get out. It was kind of like this belief system. And I think belief is really what it comes down to. So I wanted to ask you, when you were creating this medical writing thing, and even now as you're creating this new compliance business, have you struggled internally with any beliefs, or have you just been extremely confident every step of the way as you build this?
I don't think anybody's extremely confident every step of the way. I started doing medical writing. I really started it as a hobby and kind of a little bit on the side. And I thought, if I make a couple hundred a month, that's great. And then kind of realized over time, as I got more of a portfolio and all, that it might be possible to do it even full time, part time. Both of those would be options. And so when I did get the two clients that allowed me to go part-time and asked my boss, I just kind of got lucky that he asked me to go in more of a project management role. Although I'm personally happy being in the community pharmacy. But yeah, I would say that there were certainly a lot of doubts, especially with how many emails and how many applications and everything you have to put in order to do that. And I would say when I was in the process of building the medical writing business, I was applying to both full-time jobs as well as freelance and part-time jobs to kind of see what happened, and would have been open to a full-time medical writing job at the time, but heard back more from freelance jobs and then built the business out more from there, as a business rather than as an employee.
Did you at all deal with any self-doubt about this stuff?
I think my doubt was more whether or not I would get a good response, really any response, because when you send email after email or application and you don't hear back, or you hear, we need 5 years of experience in a medical communications agency, and we need
Right.
guidelines, and and regulatory writing, all this stuff. Yeah, you don't have any of that. How do you get it other than moving to New Jersey somewhere for a year, and then how do you kind of move forward from there? So yeah, definitely. And I kind of think the only thing you can do is you just keep going to bat. I think it's all you almost have to just keep going at it in spite of the doubt that you have.
That's the key thing. And I think about this a lot. I read research about it, and I'm even doing some of my own research into things with some projects well, I don't know if I could officially say what university, but I think a lot about this stuff, about imposter syndrome, about burnout, about how pharmacists form their professional identity. And I've come to a very biased conclusion. And I actually just posted about this week on LinkedIn. I'll put a link in the show notes in the future whenever I do this. And I believe that a part of our problem as a profession is that we do not have the professional societal makeup of people who are driven, right? We are risk averse. We do not like doing things that could end in failure. And that makes a lot of sense. We're pharmacists. We shouldn't be like, naloxone, whatever dose is A-okay with me. We need to be careful because we are often the last line. So if you're going to teach an entire profession to behave in such a way, it makes a lot of sense that we're not risk takers. We're not entrepreneurs. We aren't innovators. The post that I was referring to, I did a little bit of research on pharmacogenomics, which is an example of a budding industry in our profession, a place where tons of innovation should be happening. And I asked two questions. The questions were, was the founder or CEO a pharmacist? And the second one was, do they employ pharmacists? And only 2 out of the 30 had a pharmacist CEO/founder. And I think it was something like 43 or 46% of the companies did not employ a something that has our name in it. Pharmacogenomics has been driven by people outside of our profession. And I think the main roadblock we struggle with as pharmacists is that struggle between risking something and trying it and really believing it and pushing it versus just doubting ourselves into saying it's kind of scary. I don't know if I want to do it. And is it nature versus nurture? I think it's a combination of who's attracted to pharmacy. This goes like, there's not a quick solution. My original idea for this discussion was like, oh, people get hung up on LLCs and websites and all of this stuff that I really don't believe are necessary to start a business. You really just need an email and an idea or a service or a product, which both are free and sweat equity. But what I think people really are stopped by is just this negative self-belief about risking something and being able to push an idea out there. And I don't think, as Jackie Boyle, one of our coaches at the Happypharmd, often says to me, I don't think there's research to back that up. there's not a solution yet overcomes that kind of thing. And I don't know, Alex, the question that I'm wondering for you, is it because of your makeup? Is it because of who you are as a person that has led to this success? Or was it a lesson that you learned, a mentor, someone who came along? I'm sure it's a gestalt of a solution that you had for it, but I'm kind of curious as to what helped you overcome any of the doubts that came along your way.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me initially too, when I graduated, I didn't really have any intention on being an entrepreneur. And I wasn't necessarily against the idea, it had not really ever occurred to me. And, one thing that probably doesn't help is that pharmacy schools as a whole don't really make that a large part of their curriculum. And that would be a whole other podcast in itself. It should be a part of the curriculum. But when looking at all the opportunities available, pharmacy schools generally push residency first. Go to residency and go to your specialty, infectious disease and cardiology and all the cool stuff. And that doesn't.
I'm being sarcastic for those who don't see my face. Sorry, yeah. I'll be really thick on my sarcasm next time. Keep going, Alex. Sorry.
So that certainly doesn't help. But even if they had pushed it, in my case, I just wanted to get to Hawaii, and I did. I did that. So I mean, I practically wore my dive mask to graduation. So that was kind of my focus for a long time, and I feel like experiencing more than one dysfunctional work culture over time, combined with being in a management role, pretty much just got me to the breaking point of saying, I'm tired of working for other people, at least a few different employers. And I know that I'm not the only one out there that's been in those scenarios where you're,
that was me.
You know that you have to stick up for what's right, but you're going to be marched into the office for doing so, or you're in the middle of a company that can't seem to take action on initiatives in spite of how hard you push, and then you're held accountable for them not taking action on the initiative. So that basically got me those kinds of things, as well as some other kind of just general management things that would be the case in any management position. Got me to the point where I just said, you know what, I have to give this a try. And so no matter how much doubt I have, I wanted it more than I wanted to stay in that type of situation.
Yeah. The pain has to be greater, right, than the pain of being in that comfort zone. That's what I feel like our profession has sauntered into, right? The 1990s happened. Our salaries increased as a huge amount. Things were good. People were complaining about certain things, of course, but things were fine. And then for the last 2 decades, it's 2019 when we're recording this, things have slowly but surely decreased in quality for all sorts of reasons. And I'm sure people could comment for days about. But whenever I talk to my friends, colleagues, like in other professions, I like to pose questions and ask things like, could you imagine being paid, $90,000 at the top of your career as an engineer and not being able to take a lunch break every single day of work? And they go, what? No. Like, we would form unions, we would fight, we would quit, And I'm just like, oh, that's really interesting that it's that way. But it didn't happen all at once, right? It was a slow, steady, slow creep of things being taken away or added on responsibilities, less support staff. And we're in this condition now where things are not great. And on top of that, we don't feel like we can fight back, because if we do, then we lose our positions, right? We have no power within our own profession. I feel like we've gotten a little bit off topic, but I do feel like at least talking about the market and how things are the way they are and how they influence this idea of pursuing business, because I know a few people I've spoken to who complain that it's their job that holds them back from pursuing something like this, right? And the other side of that coin too is when we work with pharmacists and they get that new job, they very often will have the creative energy within them to want to go do something. Eric Yee, shouting you out, he's transitioned a few times now out of his first job, and he now is building up something. He's building a social media presence around pharmacy, and he's building up some things and opportunities. Like before, he would have never had the energy or desire to do something like that. So, there is hope for those who make that transition, but not always, I suppose. So to summarize, I think all of my messy thoughts on this, it's that I feel like the biggest roadblock is just the necessary belief that your idea has value. And I suppose where that confidence can come from, and what I feel like is the greatest way to start with your idea, is to provide a service or product to that someone. Alex, you shared with me before that your first ever idea was selling soap?
First idea that I started to pursue, I'll put it that way, was
So you're making soap in your basement?
I was making it in my 500 square foot Ohana unit on Maui, but yes. It started because I kept seeing in, all of they have something called the ABC store in Hawaii, which in the South is the liquor store, but in Hawaii is like a little knickknack and gift shop store for tourists to buy things that cost way too much. And soap is one of the things they sell there, and they run not just there, but anywhere in Hawaii. The locally made soaps run $8, $10 a bar. I even saw one for $12 a bar in the airport on Kauai one time, and I thought, man, I could do that. I took 5 semesters of compounding in pharmacy school, and this can't be that hard. And started to put the business together, and came up with a logo and branded it Luau Lather. That was going to be my Hawaiian soap.
That's decent.
Yeah. And just timing. Timing was part of it. Went back to the mainland, and there's not as much of a market for overpriced soap here as there is in Hawaii. But that was my first ever venture, I would say.
When you made that first bar, how confident were you that you could sell that thing?
I think it even had brown spots in it from an oxidizing. not very. It took a couple times for me to get a basic bar of soap down, but
yeah.
I tried.
What I feel like unnecessarily slows people down is the process of making sure everything. Being a perfectionist. That's another problem in pharmacy, right? Which is practically every pharmacist, nearly. Probably not me, but we're perfectionists, and so we want everything to be perfect before it gets delivered to the customer. And that never happens when you start something. It's always ugly. It's always not that great, not that pretty.
Yeah, it's messy.
The very first time I sold anything, it was a group class that I was selling. And I remember being on the phone, my kids in the back seat. It was a 7-hour car drive, and it was like my first phone call ever where I was selling something. I was so scared, so terrified of being rejected. And I remember going through everything, telling them about what I was selling. And the guy was like, okay, well, how much is it? And I was like, $37. Oh, sure. Yeah, that's easy. Of course. And I was like, oh, really? Oh, okay. Oh, all right. Yeah, okay. Well, class will start in 2 weeks, and then blah, blah, blah. But that gave me so much confidence making that first sale that I was like, wow, I can do this. No one ever taught me how to do it in school. You'd think something so valuable as a transaction of money that I'd be able to do it, but man, I was nerve wracking, but it gave me so much confidence. Where I think people get hung up is just doing it and accepting the fact that it will not be pretty, and that's okay, right? I'm sure your first article that you did was not the greatest creation that you ever made.
No, it certainly takes time.
Was your first ever medical writing thing, was it paid or was it free?
I would say the first one, actually, I did a few peer review just papers before I actually got into medical writing. So I guess if you count those, it would be unpaid.
Yeah. So you got your feet wet. You provided some services.
Yeah.
Did you get testimonials from them? I don't know if you had the forethought at the time.
I did not know.
That's the way to start. If you have a product or a service, give it to someone and ask them to review it, to say something nice. When I started coaching back in 2012, 2013, I did it for free because I had no idea what I was doing. And I got some people to say some nice things about me. Their success stories weren't great, but it was because they were getting coaching for free, which is a hard lesson, probably a whole nother topic for another day, that whenever someone gets something for free, they really don't value it. It's a hard truth that socialism doesn't like to accept. And that's another subject I'm not going to touch, but
Yeah.
people don't value what they get for free. Take public education for an example, or even college students that don't realize how much debt they're taking out to receive the classes, right? Everyone's out partying, having fun. But once you get those first experiences under your belt, selling your widget, selling your service, providing it, getting feedback, and improving it, like that gives you the confidence to then say, okay, I can charge $25, $50, $100 for this, and people don't bat an eye. Do you have a moment when you were proposing that you be paid X amount that made you nervous?
I don't have that yet, because with medical writing, they've always told me how much they will pay, and then I've needed to accept or deny it. But I have had to turn down work because they couldn't meet me on the income amount that I really felt valued my work appropriately. So there was actually a company that wanted to hire me to write for a somewhat of a medical device for a patient to kind of interact with the device and obtain, the health system can obtain information that they enter in the device to get their basic information, allergies and demographics and things like that. And very well-established company, but when they were looking for medical writers, the salary was far below what I could get elsewhere. And I think probably would value somebody with a bachelor's degree maybe well, but certainly as a pharmacist or other professional degrees, medical writers with a PhD or an MD too, it just below market. And so I did have to turn that down.
And that's a good feeling.
It is, yeah.
Not if you're desperate for money, but it's...
However, I will say that if it was my first job I was ever going to get in medical writing and I was looking to build my portfolio, I would have taken it. And I wouldn't say to take anything, but in that case, it was a well-established company and would look great on a portfolio if you were looking to build a portfolio. And so I think sometimes in business too, you would need to start out maybe taking a lower rate and then build it up slowly.
Right. Great lessons there. One being that, starting a business on the side can easily open you up to a whole new career path. I know a few pharmacists who started medical writing on the side and have been either offered or accepted multiple jobs doing medical writing. I think there's a lot of wisdom there. And also, I think there's a lot of wisdom in being able to say no to people. In the beginning, I don't think you don't have that sixth sense. You just think like, anybody, take my widget, anybody, I'll take your money, please. But as you get more success, you start to learn like, oh, that working for that person was awful. And when I was coaching for the majority of my time in business, like I learned very quickly who I wanted to work with. And it actually made me set a rule for my business that I live by now. And it's that I don't work with anyone that I don't like. And that may sound not nice. I have other people that can help them, of course. But, if I don't get along with you, then, I'm not going to provide you a great service, and you're not going to say great things about me. And it's okay that not everyone gets along with everyone. We can be amicable. I can be nice. That doesn't mean I need to be everything for everyone. That's how companies get ruined, right? That's how so many companies have bit the dust, because they tried being everything for everyone, and then they became no one, or they became nothing to no one.
You can easily lose focus doing that. And even within the world of medical writing, if you say you write consumer health and marketing writing, but then you start trying to get into regulatory, and you try to get into health economics and outcomes research, you can't do all of those things. You do regulatory for a while and you're not a consumer health writer anymore. It's even within those niche fields, and it takes time to find your way. The path that I found in writing happened to be in consumer health and CE and some other things like that. But yeah, every business has a focus and a niche, and that's an important thing to kind of realize, even if it takes time to find that niche.
So I think if we're going to wrap up our thoughts on this, albeit that I could talk for a lot longer on the subject, I won't. I think it's that what holds pharmacists back is really, it's a belief, and it's as easy as switching your belief. That's not that easy, I'll admit, but it comes down to, whatever roadblocks you set before you are going to stop you. If you can change the way you think about creating this business or this idea that you have, then do it. Try it. Failure is totally an option. As the resident failure of this business, I've created at least 5 different amazing ideas that I had at the time that totally failed. And I learned things along the way. If you want to get started with your idea, try doing it for free for someone. You'll learn so much. You'll learn how it'll work. You'll learn probably what it's worth to someone, and you'll get your feet wet and ideally have a great testimonial for you at the end. Or it'll help you change the direction to do something completely new, to pivot. I learned when I first started coaching people, you don't want to do general careers. Like, it wasn't fun. Talking about resumes all the time for anyone in any industry was very broad, but I cut my teeth on it and I learned the hard lessons. But I'd love to hear from you. What are the roadblocks that you think you're struggling with? Are they really the things that you've been battling with? Perhaps there's an easy switch that you can flip to fix it. I don't know exactly what it is, but I'd love to hear it in the comments, wherever those comments may be, wherever you find this podcast. Alex, any final thoughts on barriers, even your own?
I feel like the most important thing is to just get out there and do it, and pursue your own path to happiness. There's an article out there, I think it was even a book, that was the top 5 regrets of the dying. It was a hospice nurse that had collected her thoughts over the years working as a hospice nurse. And I do remember one of them was to the effect of, I wish I had had the courage to pursue my own path to happiness rather than the path that other people want me to pursue. And so now is the time to think about it.
What a message for our team-driven, guideline-following profession, right? There's so much of us that we just want to be a part of a good functioning team and help others. And sometimes that means we don't follow what we want. Well, hopefully that inspires you to not die and to pursue your dreams. I'm excited to see what those things are, because I love getting messages from people who get started and are trying stuff out. Love to hear from you. Send me a message, alex@thehappypharmd.com. Love to connect with you and see if there's something I can point you to, a resource or a direction. We'd love to help out. So until then, we'll see you in the next episode.